You were at Princeton with aspirations to be a theoretical physicist.
Yeah.
Um, what attracted you to physics, and why did you change your mind and not become why you're not Jeff Bezos, the famous theoretical physicist?
So I loved physics, and I studied physics and computer science, and I was proceeding along the physics path. I was planning to major in physics, and I wanted to be a theoretical physicist. And the computer science was sort of something I was doing for fun. I really loved it. And I was very good at the programming and doing those things, and I enjoyed all my computer science classes immensely. But I really was determined to be a theoretical physicist. It's why I went to Princeton in the first place. It was definitely, and then I realized I was going to be a mediocre theoretical physicist. And there were a few people in my classes, like in quantum mechanics and so on, who they could effortlessly do things that were so difficult for me. And I realized, like, there are 1,000 ways to be smart.
Mm-hmm.
And to be a really, theoretical physics is not one of those fields where only the top few percent actually move the state of the art forward.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where you have to be really, just your brain has to be wired in a certain way. And there was a guy named, one of these people who was, convinced me. He didn't mean to convince me, but just by observing him, he convinced me that I should not try to be a theoretical physicist. His name was Yosanta. And Yosanta, was from Sri Lanka, and he was one of the most brilliant people I'd ever met. My friend Joe and I were working on a very difficult partial differential equations problem set one night, and there was one problem that we worked on for 3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
and we made no headway whatsoever. And we looked up at each other at the same time, and we said, Yosanta. So we went to Yosanta's dorm room, and he was there. He was almost always there. And we said, Yosanta, we're having trouble solving this partial differential equation. Would you mind taking a look?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, of course. By the way, he was the most humble, most kind person.
Mm-hmm.
And so he looked at our problem, and he stared at it for just a few seconds, maybe 10 seconds. And he said, cosine. And I said, what do you mean, Yosanta? What do you mean cosine? He said, that's the answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, no, come on. And he said, let me show you. And he took out some paper, and he wrote down 3 pages of equations.
Mm-hmm.
Everything canceled out.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer was cosine. And I said, Yosanta, did you do that in your head? And he said, oh no, that would be impossible. A few years ago, I solved a similar problem, and I could map this problem onto that problem. And then it was immediately obvious that the answer was cosine. I had a few, you have an experience like that. You realize maybe being a theoretical physicist isn't what what the universe wants you to be. And so, I switched to computer science, and that worked out really well for me. I enjoy it. I still enjoy it today.
Yeah, there's a particular kind of intuition you need to be a great physicist applied to physics.
I think the mathematical skill required today is so high. You have to be a world-class mathematician to be a successful theoretical physicist today. And it's not, you probably need other skills too, intuition, lateral thinking, and so on. But without just top-notch math skills, you're unlikely to be successful.
And visualization skill, you have to be able to really kind of do these kinds of thought experiments. And if you want a truly great creativity, actually Walter Isaacson writes about you. It puts you on the same level as Einstein.
Well, that's very kind. I'm an inventor. If you want to boil down what I am, I'm really an inventor. And I look at things and I can come up with atypical solutions, and then I can create 100 such atypical solutions for something. 99 of them may not survive, scrutiny, but one of those 100 is like, maybe that might work. And then you can keep going from there. So that kind of lateral thinking, that kind of inventiveness in a high dimensionality space where the search space is very large, that's where my inventive skills come. That's the thing if I self-identify as an inventor more than anything else.
Yeah, and he describes in all kinds of different ways. Walter Isaacson does that creativity combined with childlike wonder that you've maintained still to this day. All of that combined together. Is there, like, if you were to study your own brain, introspect, how do you think? What's your thinking process like? We'll talk about the writing process of putting it down on paper, which is quite rigorous and famous at Amazon. But how do you, when you sit down, maybe alone, maybe with others, and thinking through this high dimensional space and looking for creative solutions, creative paths forward, is there something you could say about that process?
It's such a good question, and I honestly don't know how it works. If I did, I would try to explain it. I know it involves lots of wandering.
Yeah.
So when I sit down to work on a problem, I know I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So to go in a straight line, to be efficient, efficiency and invention are sort of at odds, because real invention, not incremental improvement. Incremental improvement is so important in every endeavor and everything you do. You have to work hard on also just making things a little bit better. But I'm talking about real invention, real lateral thinking. That requires wandering, and you have to give yourself permission to wander. I think a lot of people, they feel like wandering is inefficient, and like when I sit down at a meeting, I don't know how long the meeting is going to take if we're trying to solve a problem, because if I did, then I'd know there's some kind of straight line that we're drawing to the solution. The reality is we may have to wander for a long time. And I do like group invention. I think there's really nothing more fun than sitting at a whiteboard with a group of smart people and spitballing and coming up with new ideas and objections to those ideas, and then solutions to the objections, and going back and forth. So, like, sometimes you wake up with an idea in the middle of the night, and sometimes you sit down with a group of people and go back and forth, and both things are really pleasurable.
And when you wander, I think one key thing is to notice a good idea, and to notice the kernel of a good idea, maybe pull at that string, because I don't think good ideas come fully formed.
100% right. In fact, when I come up with what I think is a good idea, and it survives kind of the first level of scrutiny, that I do in my own head, and I'm ready to tell somebody else about the idea, I will often say, look, it is going to be really easy for you to find objections to this idea, but work with me.
There's something there.
There's something there. And that is intuition.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to kill new ideas in the beginning, because they do have so many easy objections to them. So you need to kind of forewarn people and say, look, I know it's going to take a lot of work to get this to a fully formed idea. Let's get started on that. It'll be fun.
So you got that ability to say cosine in you somewhere, after all. Maybe not on math, but
in a different domain.
Yeah.
There are 1,000 ways to be smart, by the way. And that is a really, like, when I go around, and I meet people, I'm always looking for the way that they're smart. And you find that's one of the things that makes the world so interesting and fun, is that it's not like IQ is a single dimension. There are people who are smart in such unique ways.
Yeah, you just gave me a good response to when somebody calls me an idiot on the internet. There's 1,000 ways to be smart, sir.
Well, they might tell you, yeah, but there are a million ways to be dumb.
Yeah, right. I feel like that's a Mark Twain quote.